boy, bad boy, bad.
Gibbons versus Ogden was a
Big.
Big case for America at the time.
It started in New York and New Jersey, with trading in the rivers between them.
There were several steamboat franchises in this area at the time.
Of course, these franchises wanted control of the rivers.
They wanted monopolies.
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 And for some franchises, the state of New York gave them these monopolies.
New York gave multiple licenses to steamboat captains.
And these licenses gave those captains permission to operate practically anywhere they wanted within New York or New Jersey.
Some who got these licenses include Robert R. Livingston, Robert Fulton, and the one who pertains to this case, Aaron Ogden.
Aaron Ogden.
Aaron Ogden?
On the route that Ogden was now allowed to run and use, there was another steamboat captain, Thomas Gibbons.
Thomas Gibbons.
Thomas Gibbons.
Gibbons was not happy that there was someone else on his turf.
You can't call it turf. They were on a river.
Turf.
Gibbons wasn't having this same river, same route business, so he went straight to the court in New York.
In court, Gibbons told them what happened and even proved that it was unlawful under the 1793 Act of Congress regulating coastal commerce. But you know what New York did?
What?
The New York court sided with Ogden and ordered Gibbons to stop operating his steamships.
Get roasted, by the way, Gibbons.
Now Gibbons was even angrier than before. Not only did he have someone else on his route, he couldn't even control his own routes.
There was also the fact that the New York court was going against what Congress had stated.
So Gibbons did the only thing he thought he could for justice.
Thomas Gibbons took this fight against monopolies in the U.S. Supreme Court.
U.S. Supreme Court.
U.S. Supreme Court.
U.S. Supreme Court.
So now the Supreme Court has the case, and who is a better judge for Gibbons than the Federalist? John Marshall.
John Marshall.
John Marshall.
Marshall was good for Gibbons because he was a Federalist. New York giving Ogden a license to trade wherever he wanted, and doing that over the 1973 Act of Congress regulating coastal commerce was a huge use of state power.
Of course, Marshall was more for federal power than he was for state power.
So, Marshall ruled for Gibbons.
In making this decision, the court went to the main rulebook of our country, the U.S. Constitution.
U.S. Constitution.
The U.S. Constitution.
In the Constitution, they pulled out the Commerce Clause.
This Commerce Clause said, Congress shall have power to regulate the commerce with foreign nations and among the several states.
Any form of commerce among two states should be under federal power.
And of course, trading and navigation between states was included in this.
This was all the proof needed to show that New York's government actions were unconstitutional.
It was even stated by John Marshall that it was repugnant because of the Constitution which authorizes Congress to regulate commerce.
They were by far unconstitutional. It went straight against the Constitution.
This led to a unanimous
decision for Gibbons.
A decision was made that all forms of commerce that went across state lines were now regulated by Congress.
This decision pretty much restated what the Commerce Clause in the Constitution had already stated.
This decision was also a good push towards stronger federal power and went against monopolies.
John Marshall, being the judge, had a push on that.
He even stated in the case that the license is a, quote, investment of power for the general advantage in the hands of agents selected for that purpose, quote.
In the end, the court lifted the injunction New York had put on Gibbons, and Aaron Ogden was dismissed.
The first effect of this case was that the Supreme Court called for the impeachments in New York to fix the errors that had happened before.
There were some bigger, longer-lasting effects of this case, though.
This case set the standard that interstate commerce would be regulated by Congress,
and not the states themselves.
Because of this, any state law regulating commerce could potentially be overruled by Congress.
This case, more than any other case, set the stage for the federal government to take even more control of commerce.
And for the states to lose more of their power. A factory in a state that sold goods to other states was now under federal control.
And this idea of the federal government having more power kind of spread.
And states began to lose more of the powers that they had once had.
So the main effect of this case was that
it led to the federal government getting a
massive boost in power.
It was one of the major steps that got the federal government where it is today.